Are you ready? I'm always ready. Are you ready? Hit it. I saw you were with them last night. I saw you were with them last night. Don't burn the bridge, burn the paper. Yeah, that's Billy D. Don't burn the bridge, burn the paper. Coming to a venue near you in the near term. Going in the studio, Sean, in a couple weeks. I'll be cutting 4 more songs, and then we'll put them up on the whatever trailblazing Spotify, YouTube, iApple, Tunes, whatever is out there. I'm still clueless about all that. And then we're going to start dipping our toe back in the water again. Make my wife nuts if she has to come with me. So, and if she doesn't, that's okay. She can she can watch me on Facebook because I'll be Facebook Live. And she'll roll her eyes, and there he goes again. So, Sean, welcome back. This is 101.5 FM, WLCB, Slate's Corner, Wisconsin. This is your Insurance Corner. Sean and I are back, and we're talking about Medicare. Any comments, Sean, before we get into the What's Covered segment of Medicare?
Nope. Teach me more, Coach.
All right. I just got to clear the phone here so that we don't get any interference. By the way, if anybody has my cell phone number, my listeners, and you want to text me a question, knock yourself out. You know the number. I'm not going to give it out because I don't give it out to everybody unless you're a client. Then all my clients have it. All right, so let's get into what's covered. Before I do, however, let me just talk about, remember, Sean, I said there is, if you're working for a company with more than 20 employees, there's no penalties. Just to sign up when you're ready. Don't have to do anything. Well, a couple things. There is a late enrollment penalty for Part A and for Part B if you don't sign up in a timely manner. And some people do actually do this. That if they're working for a smaller company, their attitude is, I'm working, I don't need Medicare. Well, if it's less than 20 employees, you absolutely have to have Medicare because whatever insurance company you have, whether it's your corporate plan, your union plan, whatever, and by the way, you could have a union plan with a company with 5 people. You could. You could have that. But if it's an employer-based plan, your employer-based plan is going to assume you have Medicare and process those claims accordingly. So if you do sign up late for Part A, the premiums will go up by 10%, assuming you have to pay premium. Again, a very rare situation, but it can happen. So let me just give you, and it's kind of a squirrely thing of how the math works here, so I'm going to give you an example. So if you were supposed to enroll in December of 2020, and you waited until March of 2023 to enroll in Part A, that for every 12 months, you're going to get a 12% penalty, and that penalty is going to be for double the period of time that you weren't covered. So in this example, that's 27 months, but not 36 months. So this person's going to get a 20% increase for 4 years because he waited for 27 months. That's 2 years and 3 months. And so that the penalty is going to double. Again, very rare that should happen because most people don't pay a premium for Part A. Part B, on the other hand, in fact, everybody's going to pay Part B premium unless you qualify for some subsidized arrangements, which is beyond the scope of today's lesson. So if you are in Part B, there is also a 10% penalty. And again, same example, you were supposed to enroll in December of 2020, you waited until March of 2023. Your premiums will go up 10% for every year that you didn't sign up, and then that penalty is now permanent. So if your premium is supposed to be let's say $200 a month for Part B, just using an example, it's now excuse me, it's going to be $240 forever, and it's going to always be a 20% increase above whatever the schedule is calling for. So don't be late. Don't be late. And always try to sign up for Medicare Part A and B 2 to 3 months in advance. And I'll share another one. And I know one of my listeners. I'm going to use you as an example of, and this is not his fault. This is just what happens when people in the federal government who are only qualified to fog a mirror and not think without help. So this person's spouse was signing up for Medicare Part A and B in April, and she turned 65 in April, but she wasn't planning on going on to Part A or B until July 1st. And that's what they indicated. But somebody at Medicare or Social Security decided to put them in as April. So, and they're in one of those brackets where the premiums are significant in terms of their income. To get out of doing this is doable, but it takes some effort to the point where you either have to get on the phone and wait for however long it might take. You might be able to get it fixed online. I'm not so sure about that. Or you have to make an appointment. Or you just acquiesce, throw up your hands and say, the heck with it, I'll just eat the cost. But this is what can happen. Now, this person did the right thing. They were applying in advance for a July 1st effective date, but because her birthday was in April, it triggered, well, we're going to sign you up for Part A and B in April, even though they didn't intend on starting it for this person until July. So he's going to try to fix it, but it's difficult. It's not easy. Getting into Social Security and Medicare is easy. Turning it off is a whole different dynamic, and it's very difficult to get out of it. So let's talk about what's covered. On page 30 of the booklet, we're just going to go through as many as I can here, Sean, until we run out of time. So the first item that comes up under Covered B services. Covered B services. Well, hold on a second. I might be getting ahead of myself here. Oh, I want to cover Part A first, not Part B. So forget what I just said. We're going to cover Part A first. So Part A is hospitals. Just hospital. Nothing else. I don't care who works at the hospital. It's just the hospital charge. That's it. So it's covering you for inpatient care, skilled nursing facility care, which has an asterisk. I'll get to the asterisk in a second. Part A will cover for hospice and some home health care, which again has an asterisk to it. Now, inpatient stays are not as long as they used to be, but for some seniors, they can be lengthy for sure. I have a client right now, Sean, who he's going to be in a hospital for a while and maybe pushed to a skilled nursing facility, so I'm going to use this as an example. He was just diagnosed, well, back up a second. He fell and broke his arm and shattered his pelvis. And I want to say that, let's just call him John. John's, I think, pushing 80, and he was still working. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. He liked doing what he was doing. And he got paid pretty well doing it. But he fell, broke his arm, shattered his pelvis. Fast forward to this past week, I got a phone call and found out that John has a very serious blood cancer, which may be a precursor as to why he fractured his arm and his pelvis the way he did. This past weekend, he also had a heart attack in the hospital. So he's in a bad way. The hospital is trying to put him into an acute rehabilitation center, but it's in the hospital. It's not a skilled nursing facility. So the rehab will be done in the hospital. All of that would be a Part A benefit. All of that would fall under Part A. And here's the thing, folks, with being moved into a rehab facility, and I know another listener of mine is skilled in that space. This is her wheelhouse. The patient, in order for Medicare to cover you, the patient has to show progress in their therapy. They can't just give up and say, I don't want to do it, I'm not doing it, just let me die, blah, blah, blah. I appreciate how they feel, I get it. But in order for Medicare to cover it, you've got to show some progress. Even if it's baby steps, you've got to show progress. But that's inpatient. Now, to get to a skilled nursing facility, now this rule, Sean, is old school. It requires you to be in the hospital for 3 days before you can qualify to get into a skilled nursing facility, which is also known as a nursing home. But in this case, it's a SNF, skilled nursing facility. You have to be in the hospital for 3 days. Why do I call this old school? Because people are having hip replacements and knee replacements now on a outpatient basis or a 1 day in the hospital kind of thing, and they're getting them out the door. So those people who need PT or some kind of therapy to get them back on their feet again are now going through outpatient services, which is fine, keeps the cost down, but that may have some, for some people, particularly older people that have other moving parts, that may cause some other problems down the road. If you want to stay in a hospital setting, you have to stay in the hospital for 3 days, and then they'll move you to a skilled nursing facility where they will schedule physical therapy or occupational therapy or speech therapy, all the above. And again, you have to show progress. They will cover up to 3 pints of blood per calendar year. Now, this is a kind of a head scratcher because it doesn't happen often, but I know what happens. What happens if you need 10 pints of blood, Sean? Do you have any idea what happens?
Geez. I guess I'm going to have to pay for them if I need them, right?
Yeah, either that or you donated it before you went into the hospital. More than likely, let's say you're going to...
10 pints of blood would be a long time, though.
Yeah, or you have other people that you know are, B positive or AB negative, and you get them to donate a pint of blood here and there so that there is a reserve there for you. Otherwise, you're paying for it. Yeah, you're absolutely paying for it. And I can see this where you're doing a heart-lung transplant where they have to stop everything and they're artificially pushing blood through you, or it's a serious surgery and they're having to, get a pint and another pint and another pint just to keep fresh blood flowing while they figure out where the bleeding's coming from. But anything beyond 3 units of blood, you're on your own. Home health care in Part A is for physical therapy, intermittent skilled care, speech therapy, occupational therapy, durable medical equipment, which is in our world called DME, that's durable medical equipment, and other supplies. In some cases, home health care will fall here under Part A. Skilled care, by the way, you can get home health care under Part A with up to 8 hours a day and no more than 28 hours in a week. But I'm here to tell you, Sean, those are scrutinized very heavily because it has to be medically necessary for those skilled caregivers to be there. They cannot be doing any kind of custodial care or homemaker care. That's not covered. That's for other products like long-term care. There is one exception to that, and I'll get to that right now. Hospice. If you're going to be diagnosed with a medical condition that is likely to cause you to pass away within 6 months, then homemaker services, some homemaker services will be allowed. Generally, it's within 6 months that you're going to pass or that you're going to live and then you pass. They're dealing with pain management. nursing and some social services are under this hospice care. This is more bereavement kind of stuff, maybe for the family and or for the patient who may have all the cognitivity in the world and know that they're going to go. I'm going to digress here a second. I saw a little video clip, Sean, of Toby Keith when he was dying from stomach cancer, and the clip that I saw was basically his goodbye. He says, "Well, I'm going to make this my goodbye celebration," or whatever word he used. And I didn't listen to the whole thing, but it was basically his way of saying goodbye because he knew he was dying, and there was no coming back. And likely when he did that, he was in hospice. There's still an opportunity for hospice to be extended if a doctor can certify that you're still in hospice and you might live a couple more months, but you can't be in hospice indefinitely. It doesn't make sense. So a doctor has to certify that you need hospice maybe one more time. There is this other observation thing called MOON, and there's an acronym for it. What's it called? Medicare Outpatient Observation Notice. Medicare Outpatient Observation Notice, also known as MOON. This is a situation where somebody is admitted into the hospital and they're under observation. And generally, it's supposed to be under observation in a hospital. You're not admitted, but you're outpatient, and it's less than 24 hours. But, Sean, I can tell you, I've seen where patients have been there for 3 days, and they were under an observation status, not an inpatient status. And that kind of stuff just makes my eyes water. I don't understand. Somebody smarter than me has to explain it. How does somebody get under observation when they're there for 3 days? I don't understand that. Just saying. But that's called MOON. Again, Medicare. I can't read this. Hold on a second. Medicare Outpatient Observation Notice. That's going to also fall under Part A. I'm going to go back to skilled nursing care for a second here. You have to be in the hospital for 3 days, and you must show improvement. I said that earlier in the show. You've got to show improvement while you're in a skilled nursing facility with rehab. For the first 20 days, you'll have no out-of-pocket. You may have some with Medicare Advantage plans. We're not covering that, but generally speaking, you'll have no out-of-pocket. Between 21 and 100 days, you'll have $200 a day copay or deductible. Again, Medicare Advantage plans may differ. If you have a Medicare supplement, the likelihood is you're not going to have any out-of-pocket beyond your $240 deductible, unless you have a high deductible, in which case you're looking at $2,700. But then once you hit that level, you're still going to be no out-of-pocket at that point. However, if you're still in a skilled nursing facility after 100 days, you're on your own. The likelihood of somebody being in a skilled nursing facility that long and not kicked out by Medicare is highly unusual. So now let's talk about Part B. As I said before, Part B is everything else. Outpatient services, some home care services, durable medical equipment, mental health, a whole bunch of quote-unquote preventive services, which are more like wellness services. They're not physicals, folks. Medicare supplement versus Medicare Advantage plans and employer or union plans are all going to be supplements to the Part B and the Part A, and they will pay based on their schedule of benefits, not necessarily what Medicare paid or didn't pay. I can say, though, that if you have Medicare Part A and B, and you have a supplement, a Medicare Advantage, or an employer plan as your supplement, if Medicare didn't cover the service, it's highly likely that your other supplemental coverage will not cover it either. So, let's get into what's covered. This starts on page 30. The first thing that comes up is under preventive services. This is a preventive service, Sean. It says abdominal aortic aneurysm screenings. And it goes into saying that Medicare will cover an abdominal aortic aneurysm screening ultrasound once if you're at risk, only with the referral from a doctor or qualified healthcare provider. You are considered at risk if you have a family history of abdominal aortic aneurysms, or you're a man between 65 and 75. It says, and you're a man. Sean, there's nothing in here about women. It says, and or you're a man, 65 to 75.
They must be playing the odds that women live longer or something, or have better health. I'm not sure.
Well, they certainly live longer. There's statistical evidence to suggest that. That's why life insurance premiums are cheaper, because they live longer. That's why health insurance before Obamacare is generally cheaper was generally cheaper for women than men. Unless they're in their maternity years, then it's a different animal altogether. But it doesn't say anything here about women. And then it also said, or you're a man 65 to 75 and have smoked at least 100 cigarettes in your lifetime. Well, if you're a smoker, I guarantee you've smoked more than 100 cigarettes in your lifetime.
That's 5 packs of smokes, yeah.
Yep. They cover acupuncture, but there are limitations to that. They'll cover 12 acupunctures in a 90-day period for chronic back pain. Specifically for chronic back pain. They don't say for anything else, just chronic back pain. And the acupuncture can go for up to 20 treatments in a 12-month period, but only for back pain, nothing else. And I know that some people swear by acupuncture, and they believe in it. You're on your own, folks. That's something that is not going to be cleared by Medicare, even if there is a prescription by your provider saying Sean needs acupuncture. Unless it's for back pain, it's likely not going to happen. Advanced planning, Sean, is another one that's under the covered areas of Part B services. But this gets into kind of the more of the legal side of things, because as you read through this, you're talking about directives, your powers of attorney for property and health care, particularly your legal document that says unplug me. I know there's a term for it, and I've just drawn a blank as to what it's called.
Living will?
Living will, thank you. No, not the living. Is it the living will? Yeah. Maybe it's living will. Yes.
Or a medical power of attorney.
Yeah. Either that, one of those two. You've got a statement out there, basically ingrained in stone, that says, if this happens, then unplug me. I don't want to live this way any longer. Basically, so a living will, it's a legal document, folks. It's not a will. It's not a power of attorney. It's your health care directive that says, if this happens, do not resuscitate. That's ostensibly what we're talking about here. And Medicare will cover some of that, but they don't tell you what they're going to do, Sean. So it's a bit of a head scratcher what they're going to do and what they're not going to do here. This is under the idea of preventive services, alcohol misuse screening and counseling. If you're given, if a primary care doctor or other healthcare provider determines you're misusing alcohol, you can get up to 4 brief. I want to underscore the word brief because they don't define brief. Brief face-to-face counseling sessions per year. So you're an alcoholic, and they're going to give you 4 brief face-to-face meetings. And by the way, after this year, telehealth is not allowed unless you're living in a rural area. If you're living in an urban area, you cannot. Telehealth is no longer covered after this year. So this misuse thing is a bit of a head scratcher too, because if they truly have a problem, 4 face-to-face meetings ain't going to do it. Now, the face-to-face may end up saying you need to go to AA, or we'll put you in the hospital because you're over the, you're beyond help. We need to get you some real concerted help. But this is a counseling screening kind of a session. And I'll just add this one other little tidbit. The person has to be willing to do it. And what's the old saying, Sean? The addict is not going to admit they've got a problem until they've hit rock bottom, right? So they just have to be willing to do it. We're coming to the top of the hour, and we're just scratching the surface, folks. We're going to be continuing what's covered on Part B next week. So, Sean, any thoughts or comments as to what we have covered in our homework this weekend or this week?
No, I'm just going to have to keep my advisor close because, wow.
There's a lot of moving parts, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a minute to 7 o'clock. Sean and I want to appreciate the fact that you guys stuck with us and listened to us during this last hour at Your Insurance Corner. Please keep in mind that this is a non-for-profit radio station. So if you feel the urge or need to get a tax deduction, reach out to lakesradio.org. Go find the spot where you can drop some money in the bank, and you can get a tax deduction since we are a 50C93 organization. I'm sure I killed the way that commercial's supposed to go, Sean, but or that announcement. I shouldn't say commercial, that announcement, but it basically is the same thing, right?
Correct.
All right. With that, we're off. You all have a great week, great weekend. Have a nice night, Sean. We'll talk to you later. See you next week. Take care, everybody.